Hey guys, in today's video we're going to learn how to make Olaf from Frozen. Now I'm using Saraceno modelling paste, and I've started off with just two round balls that we're going to flatten the top and the bottom of, and I'm just doing that by pressing down slightly with my forefinger and thumb and then turning it with the other hand, and these are going to form the basis of the feet. We're going to pop those to one side just to firm up a little bit. And then we're going to start with a bigger ball, and this is going to form the bottom belly. Now it's quite big and bulky, but it's not quite a circle as if he was making a normal snowman. It's kind of like a marshmallow shape. And so we're going to test that against the size of the feet, and then we're just going to separate them a little bit and then leave them both to firm up. We're going to move on to the second part, which is another round ball. Again, it's quite a flat shape, it's not a circle, but it's significantly smaller than the last one that we did. And you just want to check them for size, making sure that you're getting the right shape. I had a picture of Olaf that I was using at the same time. And then pop those to one side just to dry. And we're going to start with the face. So with the face, I've started with a bit of a weird shape. It's kind of like an oval that is slightly fatter at one side than the other. And I'm just going to use my little finger just to mark in where his eyes are going to go. Now both the top of his head and the bottom is quite pointy, but the top of the head is a lot shorter than the bottom of the head. So you just want to smooth that area out. You want to kind of take the dint that's been formed by your finger and kind of flatten it a little bit. Just pull that shape out. So you can see there that I've created quite a large ledge, and this is going to form the basis for his nose and his mouth. I've trimmed some excess off the top, and then I'm just using my fingers just to smooth that out a little bit. So you can see I'm blending it in so you can't see that I've chopped anything off. Just reinforcing that line and smoothing it out to make it quite flat. So next we're going to just push up with the finger, holding the ledge that we just made, and then marking in some dots for the mouth. So with the scalpel tool, you're going to move from one side to the other and then just lift it up slightly. And we're just going to form the top lip. So we're going to push in underneath it, and then just use the scalpel tool just to bring the lips round a little bit, so we'll make him look as if he's smiling. And we're going to smooth over everything that we've done, so we don't want any lumps or bumps or anything like that. Marking for where the nose is going to be. We're not going to put the nose in yet, but it's just going to give us an idea of where that will rest. With your Dresden tool, we're then going to put in the bottom part of the smile. So we're just going to pull the fondant down a little bit. It doesn't need to be too deep because we don't want a lot of black to fill that hole, but we just want to create the shape of the mouth and smooth everything out. It sort of gives you a basis of what the face is going to look like when it's done. So just putting in the lip, just slightly pushing up with your Dresden tool and then smoothing it with your thumb. Just going over everything to make sure it's nice and smooth. Be careful not to lose the shape of the head. Just flattening out the sides to try and make them both the same as each other. I'm going to take a little bit off the bottom here and just blend it in the same way that I did the top. Now the top of his head's quite flat, so you need to make sure that that stays quite flat when you're working. So just smoothing out everything, and then I've got some black. I'm just going to put a tiny little bit in, and then I'm just going to use the Dresden tool just to push that into place. So you want to push it in at the top and then bring it down slightly. You could paint it if you wanted to, but painting would take quite a bit to dry, and I'm clumsy, so I would have touched it and put it over everything. So I just like to use a little bit of black fondant. Now we're going to put in his teeth. So just a little oval shape that we're flattening, and then we're going to trim it down to the size that's needed. So just trimming off either side of that, and then we're just going to push that into place. It shouldn't need any water because the fondant is still quite tacky. And just push that in, making sure that it's nice and he's got one nice and flat line for the bottom of his teeth. And trying to push it in at the sides just to give it a little bit of bending. Now I've got my scriber tool, and I'm just going to go around the black line just to smooth it out so it's nice and neat. And then we're going to take a small ball tool and we're going to put in some marks for the eyes. So I'm using the middle of the ball tool just to create a ledge, and that's going to give us a space for the eyes. And then you just want 2 dots fairly close together and try to get them the same size. Now I've got some dust that I use, and the dust that I did was a light blue. If I was doing it again, I would use a darker blue so that I didn't have to then go in and touch it up. I thought that it would be dark enough to be seen, but it wasn't. So I switched it for, I think it was like a navy. But I've just got a brush and I'm just going to dust around the circles that we've just made for the eyes. And this is, if you just look closely at his eyes, he's got sort of like a dusted area around it that's a light blue. But I just think it needed to be a little bit darker than this blue that I had here. So once you've done that, if you take some small white balls, and these are just going to form the eye. So you can only just see the outline of blue that's there. Just needed it to be a little bit darker. And then some more for the eyes, so quite small and fiddly. I like to use the fondant rather than paint them on. I just think it's easier to get them in the same place and of the same size when you use fondant. Just flattening it with the Dresden tool and pulling it to where it needs to go. So put both of those on. Again, you shouldn't need any water to stick these on, they should just stick themselves. So once you're happy with the placement of the blacks of the eyes, we're then going to do the light reflection in the eyes. So again, these are just small white blobs of fondant, and you're just going to pop them in the eyes at the same point. So if one's on the right side, then the other one needs to be on the right side. So just pushing those into place. Next, I've got some orange coloured fondant for the nose. So starting off with a ball and then pointing it at one end. And we're just going to put some lines on to make it look more carrot-like. Now, it doesn't matter if it bends or anything, because his nose is quite bendy anyway. It's not a straight nose. So once you've put the lines in, you could trim off the excess. And then we're just going to attach that to the little hole that we made earlier on. So just pushing that into place. So you can see it's starting to come together now. Just try to push it on so that it comes right up to where his eyes are. And then just re-go over the area there just to put the lines in. So next we're going to do his sort of like, I guess, eyeliner. So just a little bit of water on the top of his eyes, and then just a really thin strip of black. And you're just going to push that into place. Trim off the excess. Now this doesn't go all the way around his eye. It is just literally the top of his eye. And then you're going to do the same for the other eye. And then this is the point where I re-went in the bottom with just a bit of a darker blue. So just a really fine brush, because it doesn't need to be too big, but just to go over that edge. So hindsight, I would have used this blue the first time, but I will put a link in the description box below for everything that I've used. So now just some dark brown, and this is going to be for the eyebrows. And so we're going to wet the area just a little bit first, and then we're going to pop the eyebrows in place. So the thicker end is going towards the middle of the brow, And then we're just going to use our Dresden tool to push this into place. Now his eyebrows kind of go down at the side and then up at the top. So you're kind of creating a ever so slightly wiggly shape, and that's going to form his eyebrows. And the one on the other side is exactly the same. I like to use the fondant just because you can push it into place rather than painting. So now we're going to pop him together. So I've got a kebab skewer, 2 kebab skewers, and I've got a dummy, a really small one. It's only 3 inches. You want to put your kebab skewer in and just wiggle it about a little bit so that once it's all dried and you come to take it off, you're not having to yank it out. It should just slide out. So just a little bit of water that's going to stick the feet together and a little bit of water on the kebab skewer, and you're going to pop those in, and then we're going to put the body on the legs and just push that down, and then another cocktail stick in, and this is going to support the head. So just wet the cocktail stick, and then we're just going to slide the head on. Now I've angled it a little bit at the side because I wanted him to kind of look like he was going to one side. And then we're just going to stick the coal on his belly. So 3 balls that we're going to flatten. They all want to be different shapes. So next is the arms. So just some quite thin sausages. We're going to flatten one side, and that's going to be the fingers. So we're just going to cut some tiny little triangles out of there just to create that shape. You're going to do the same with the other side, and then we're just going to pull out just a random bit on either side to make it look more twig-like. Pop those to one side to dry, and then we're just going to create some hair. So just some small pieces of fondant that are pointed at one side, roughly about the same same height as each other. Again, we're just going to create a little bit of a twig movement in those to make it look more wood-like. And then a little hole in the top of his head. Doesn't have to be too deep. And then a little bit of water in there. Now this bit is quite fiddly, so you just want to kind of pick them up and drop them in. Doesn't matter what they do when you're putting them in. Once they're in, you'll be able to move them and shape them until you're happy. So just using your scriber tool, find it helps me a lot because I've got chunky fingers. And next we're going to just stick the arms on. Now I chose to have his arms sort of being crossed, like he's holding his own hand. If you wanted to have his arms out, then what you would need to do is you would need to put a florist wire through the arm and then put that into the body and allow it to dry. You'll need the florist wire just to give the fondant some support. So I started off with the hands this way, and then I decided to change them so they went more over to the other way. So you can see I started off that way and then I just moved them to go the other way, just because I felt like you could see them better without being on the charcoal bit. So here's the cake it went on. I hope you liked today's video. If you did, please give a big thumbs up. Don't forget to comment down below, and please hit the subscribe button. And if you'd like to see more of my videos, please hit the links on the screen now. Thanks for watching.